Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Dr. Obi. I am a behavioral researcher and an educator in AI ethics, data, and security. I sometimes get asked, can I transition to an AI career if I don't have a tech background? The short answer to that is yes. AI is not just for software engineers and data scientists. There are several entry points for professionals from business, healthcare, marketing, law, education, and more. So in this video, I am going to walk through an AI job description that will help you see that an AI career can be for you, and most importantly, how you can get ready for it. So today we're going to review a job description to see what organizations are looking for in a responsible AI ethics professional. This is an older job description, so it's no longer available. The title is Responsible AI Risk Manager. What does responsible AI mean? It is a term used to describe the practice of developing and implementing artificial intelligence systems in a way that aligns with ethical principles, ensuring that AI is safe, transparent, and does not cause harm unintentionally. Responsible AI means that the system abides by some tenets or addresses concerns of fairness, otherwise known as bias, accountability, transparency, privacy, security. Essentially, it's knowing that the software or the system can be trusted to not cause harm to the people using it, or that people are not negatively impacted when it's used to make decisions concerning their lives. So let's look at the profession and discipline. As you can see here, this role is within the governance, risk, and compliance area. So this means that if you're already in this line of work or close, that is, if you're in governance, if you're in risk management or in compliance, this job may be in your wheelhouse. First, let's look at the overview. They want you to identify or see yourself as an AI ethics or responsible AI person. This is a little something to weed out people who don't see themselves as this. If you're already doubtful, you probably won't apply. This is where confidence in who you are or want to become comes in. Few managers want to interview someone who is unsure of themselves. Think about it. Would you want to hire an electrician who appears fidgety with a notion of electricity? No, no, you won't. Neither would a hiring manager. If this is what you want to do, own it. It says here we're looking for a responsible AI risk manager to join the privacy organization in the sales and support division of Microsoft. It also tells us the particular organization. The MCAPS, which is Microsoft Customer and Partner Solution. Within MCAPS, TRIP, which is Trust, Integrity, and Protection, is responsible for governance, risk, and compliance and provides guidance and oversight across the MCAPS organization. So what will a RAI, which is responsible AI, what would a RAI risk manager be doing on a day-to-day basis? I break them down into 8 points of interest. Number one, you will act as an integral member of the PACE RAI program, accountable for responsible AI operationalization in the sales process and solution across the division. So this means that the risk management of AI will be performed in the sales process and all that goes into that. You will define, operationalize consistent, I like the word consistent here, responsible AI risk assessment processes and translate policies into controls in the sales and delivery systems. You will make sure that there is consistency in how AI risk assessment is performed in translating AI policies and controls in the sales process. To do that, you need a risk-based mindset. I like that also. But what does that mean? It means that you chase things down, that you are a healthy skeptic. If something is off, you don't just ignore it. Rather, you identify the type of risk this might present to your organization. Number four, You will be one of the people providing recommendations to comply with standard. But how? How will this happen? That means you need to be familiar with the standard in the sales process before you can make recommendations that meet those standards. The next point is where the scope of the standard are laid out for you. The scope of risk and recommendations are within the AI risk framework, which is fairness, reliability, safety, privacy, security, transparency, and accountability to ensure trustworthy AI deployment. This means you need to be familiar with AI ethics framework. This is the point where they tell you in more detail that you really need to understand the AI ethics framework to be able to do this job. They say here a deep understanding of privacy, fairness, and bias dimensions consideration in the application and technology, and the motivation to identify potential bias in the development of product. Wow. What does this mean? Motivation here may mean, are you the type of person that will notice a bias and say something? Are you motivated to identify all biases, whether it affects you or not? That's what I think this is saying. Point 7 here is obvious. You will contribute to responsible AI policy. Point 8 here is telling you that they expect you to have some project management skills and you'll be using them in this role. So here it says you will provide suggestions around internal best practices through proficient project management skills. Okay, so now let's look at some of the specific responsibilities that are embedded in the overview section so that you know exactly what it entails. There are 3 main aspects of this role. Number 1 is risk management and assessment. Number 2 is RAI, or responsible AI risk and compliance in sales. And finally, you have project management. So those are the key 3 areas that this job focuses on. Let's tackle number 1, risk management and assessments. So you will gather and analyze information through risk management. What does that mean? You will be the one gathering the information needed to perform risk analysis and assessment for any given process. You will need to hunt down all the information you need to make the determination of whether the process or software presents a risk to the organization. For this, you need a specific skill set: risk analysis and assessment. Now, there's information all around on the internet that you can learn to understand risk assessment and analysis if you don't already know this. There's a process for doing this, right? Number 2 is evaluate the level of risk, develop risk mitigation plans, and coordinate with stakeholders through the risk governance process to implement risk mitigation efforts. So what does that mean? It's right along the lines of a previous one that we just talked about. After you do the risk analysis and assessment, you then need to evaluate the risk. Again, there are tools and processes for doing this that if you don't already know, that you can learn on YouTube, internet. You can even do a short mini course for doing risk management, risk assessment. The evaluation process here will tell you the level of risk this might be, whether it's high, medium, low, and the organization's risk appetite for the specific risk. Then you will develop or suggest a plan on how to mitigate or reduce the risk. Now, there are different ways of addressing risk. In this case, they want you to mitigate or reduce the risk, but again, there are different ways to address it. To do this, you will need to work with the main stakeholders, the people and the processes that will be affected by the risk. Again, they tell you that you will follow the risk governance process to be able to address this risk. All right, so let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is where you perform thorough impact assessments and reviews of internal AI applications, applying enterprise RAI standards. Here, you will carefully evaluate the impact of the risk to the sales organization. Remember MCAPs? And you will do so by applying the AI ethics framework. Recall the framework that I just talked about, or It might be a standard framework that Microsoft uses. So based on the risk that you identified, you will evaluate fairness or bias. Is it fair? Is this biased towards any demographic group? Does it prefer or favor any group over the other? Accountability. Who can be held responsible for this issue, this risk? If this risk does take place, who is responsible for it? And so on and so forth. So if you recall what the AI ethics framework is, right? It goes through fairness, accountability, transparency, explainability, privacy, controllability. There's so many, but they're standard ones that people ought to follow. But Microsoft also has theirs that this job may refer to. The idea here, number 3, is that you follow whatever internal standards they have and work through how the impact assessment, how will this impact the organization, right? And number 4 here says document potential remediation to comply with standards and policies. Here, you will document the possible ways that this issue can be remedied. To do this, again, you need domain expertise, not just in the sales process, but in the particular products being sold. By the way, your recommendations may comply with not just Microsoft standards and policies, but the ones that govern the places or the countries in which Microsoft's products or systems are operated. For example, if the sales process or the sales system is used in Europe, you'll need to think of the standards in Europe, be it the EU AI governance or EU AI policies that or regulations that are in the EU concerning AI. So you will need to be familiar with all those policies and all those regulations in all the different places that this sales process will touch. Number 5 here says partner with stakeholders to ensure compliance before launch of AI solution, while using judgment from a design perspective and implementation of RAI principles to be balanced and traded off. So here it says you will work with stakeholders to figure out the best possible way to address the risk, knowing that you can't ever completely eliminate risks 100%. There's always something lingering. There has to be a trade-off. What can we do? What can we not do? What can we forfeit? There always has to be a trade-off whenever one is talking about risks. Number 6 here is ensure updates to controls, guidance, and any training are programmatically managed when policies and standards are updated. So follow the automated process that's in place when making any updates to the policy. You must follow the process. It can't be that you updated, say, policy 101 version 2 and you did so on your local drive and forgot to update it in the repository where other co-workers might need to access it. This is not just important because someone says it's important, but usually there are standards and guidelines that big organizations have to report. Okay, they have to report that they followed this, they followed that. So if these documentations are not updated in a place where someone can run a report and see it, that becomes an issue. So here, just wanting to make sure that you understand that when you update something that is done using the process. All right. So in terms of responsible AI and compliance for sales, now we're talking about the area of responsibility, right? We talked about the first just now, which is risk management and assessment. Now we're going to be talking about responsible AI and compliance for sales. Bear in mind that this is the second major aspect of a job, so let's review them one by one. The first one here says that you will translate responsible AI standards and you will translate responsible AI standards into effective controls and scalable implementation practices for our sellers. This means that you will be the one breaking down each line item in the standards document into actionable steps that can be implemented as controls in your group. is sales. The second one here says you will be partnering with engineering teams and Office of RI to define the required set of controls that need to be implemented in the sales systems. You will define the responsible AI checks in the sales process to ensure seamless experience for sellers. Okay, so while the first one says you translate for your internal team, this one says you will work with other teams, the engineering and development teams, and specifically Office of RI, to define what these controls or how these RI specific controls will be designed into the software systems used by the sales team. Since AI is in most every software now, they want to make sure that the sales software also adheres to AI ethics. So in this case, you'll work with the office in charge or the RI office, as well as engineers developing the tools to ensure that the AI in these tools are responsible, that they follow the AI ethical guidelines. Number 3 here says you will plan, design, partner with engineering teams to develop features in sales systems that have a clear alignment to the minimum required controls for responsible AI checks. This is also in line with the previous one. It's just more specific, saying that you will work with developers to ensure there's no hiccup in the way sales uses their tools with respect to RI and with respect to the right changes that might have been put into place. So you are the lookout person. You are their gatekeeper, making sure their tools are still effective while complying with the responsible AI checks. So number 3, and this is a big one. As you can see, all of what we've talked about means that you'll be working with several people. You'll be talking with several people. So project management skills are important. It is a third aspect of this job role. Let's look at what you're expected to do with project management skills. So even though the requirements do not specifically ask for experience in project management, as you can see, you need it, and you will not be able to succeed if you don't have it. This is evident with all the touch points we see from the previous responsibilities. So what do you need? You need to make sure that organizational risks are raised to senior management. This is calling out the communication part of project management. You need to be comfortable presenting and discussing issues with senior leadership. So during an interview, if you're being interviewed for this job, you will be evaluated on this skill and ability. They will ask you things like, where have you done it? Can you do it? Are you phased when it comes to presenting issues to leadership? You better not be for this job. So practice it if you haven't done it before. Imagine presenting to the CEO of Microsoft. How would you compose yourself to do it? Number 2 here says you need to continuously document, improve, and streamline processes to advance the applicable compliance programs and initiatives assigned. Yeah, documentation is key in this role. It is key in any project management role. Organizations want to make sure that they are documenting their compliance. Moreover, Microsoft, like many big organizations, work across the globe and must also adhere to the laws of the countries in which they operate. So compliance is key, and documentation of these compliance issues is equally important. Number 3 here says, manage cross-functional dependencies, risks, and changes effectively by optimizing scope, schedule, and resources accordingly. Here, you need to ensure you not only know your part, but you understand how it impacts other functions that depend on your systems, on which your systems depend. So this is project management 101, risks. Making sure you know how your products will change other products or how other products will change you. So there's interoperability risks here that you need to identify as you're managing the project. Number 4 here says, actively create opportunities for synergies across engineering, Office of Responsible AI, on other corporate teams to drive long-term technology solutions. So the task here is to keep open communication with other departments like engineering, your own organization, other corporate teams who will benefit from knowing how AI ethics and responsible AI will affect them. So communicate, so network with other teams and do things that will make them talk to you so that you know how your work or your team might be affected by what other teams are doing. All right. So now let's look at the big one, the requirements of this job. Do you have what it takes? So starting with the minimum requirements, let's see here. 6 years experience in risk management. If you don't have this, does this disqualify you? Not so fast. Microsoft has created other alternative experiences that you might qualify for. Now, notice the 6 years experience, right? Here, my thinking is that for you to be able to remember, the title of job says manager. So manager means that you should have some experience managing people, managing resources, if not people, managing processes, or being a project manager. So in that case, you have some experience talking with people, you have experience interfacing with people, right? And so they need you to have that experience. They don't need anyone who's afraid of speaking out when they see something wrong and that might affect the business. So 6 years in risk management is a requirement. However, they create leeways everywhere so that other people can do this job. So they say here, if you have a degree plus 4 years doing any of these, so 4 years doing risk management in privacy, in security, in compliance, in government intelligence, in operations and auditing of finance. My goodness, this is a whole wide net that we include many people interested in this job. So remember how I talked at the very beginning that a lot of people can do work in AI that doesn't involve a lot of tech. Even added another equivalent to catch even more people. So what experience do you think will fall under equivalent experience? Comment and let me know, right? So aside from the risk management, privacy, security, compliance, government intelligence, operations, auditing, or finance, or they add more things in there that will capture a lot of other people. So moving on, 2+ years experience with responsible AI experience, where you support ethics, safety, evaluations, data privacy, impact assessment, and privacy in a tech organization. We've talked about this responsibility before, but here they want to know that you've had previous experience doing this. So do you have 2 years experience doing any risk management or doing anything that involves AI, whether it is supporting privacy, doing safety, doing anything where there's safety, where there's ethics involved? This is where you talk about it. This is where they need that experience. Big one here is certification. This one you need. This is a requirement, and this will cost you money if you don't already have it. So what are the certifications that they need? They need AIGP. This is Artificial Intelligence Governance Professional. They need CIPT, CIPM, CIPP. They need you to have at least one in these areas. Moving on. So these are preferred requirements. It's a long list, so brace yourself. Number one, experience within HR, privacy, and security teams in technology organizations. So you notice here that the tech is still coming in somehow, right? Have you worked in a tech? Because if you have, then you have some understanding of what goes on there, how they start projects, how they move projects along, and so on and so forth. So if you have this, this is preferred, right? Doesn't mean that if you don't have it, that you're all of a sudden out of the game, but they prefer someone who has some prior experience being in a place where information is protected. Okay. Number 2 here says understanding of generative AI and machine learning technologies. So this is where the tech comes in, because you can't really protect something you don't know how it works. So you need to go and learn how the technology behind generative AI and machine learning. You need to have a good understanding so that you can talk about it and be able to understand what happens when engineering teams and different teams are talking about what's going on. You need exposure to LLMs, to large language models, multimodal models, Azure OpenAI, relevant Microsoft technologies is a plus. So this is more like, do you understand how ChatGPT works under the hood? Do you understand the technologies that support it? And more especially, how Microsoft Copilot works, okay? You need to also understand Azure AI tools, or at least be familiar with them. Do you know this? Do you have this understanding? If not, you should. Now, moving on, the preferred requirement says broad risk management compliance, demonstrated ability to review ethics, fairness, and privacy issues in applications, platforms, and identify compliant mitigation strategies. We've talked about this before. You understand AI ethics issues like privacy, like fairness, like accountability, and you know that these issues exist in consumer applications. You know how to mitigate them. So the interviewer may ask you to give an example of an AI issue and a possible mitigation approach that you will present to solve this issue. So that's what I will do if I were interviewing someone on this job. If I needed to know that they understand risk management, they understand compliance, and they know how to review ethics in a software system. Okay. So this is what I will be presenting. The weeks go by, I'll be talking about different ways to identify issues in software system and consumer applications. So if you're interested, continue to watch and subscribe to the channel so that when new videos come up, we'll see it. So number 5 here is effective written oral communication skills, along with the desire and ability to communicate with business leaders through all levels of the organization. I like the statement about desire and ability. It recognizes that you may have the desire, but not the ability, or the ability, but not the communication. Well, in this job, both seem to be preferred. Okay, so number 6 says analyze complex problems, think creatively, communicate, and so on and so forth. Here, the requirement is think, communicate, and recommend. Number 7 is demonstrate your ability to incorporate diverse perspectives and to address complex issues. So show us that you can listen to diversity of thought. Listen to people who think differently from you and incorporate those to help them solve problems, right? So that's number 7. And it's key. And so they will test you on this. They will ask you questions about when you've incorporated things that are different from yours, that you were able to take in information from something that was different from your own, and it actually solved a problem that you had, a big problem. So you might evaluate on this. So think about how to answer this question. Number 8 here is in line with 7, which suggests that you should work with others. Ability to collaborate with other professionals, remove barriers to progress, and lead across organizational teams. So this is standard. Number 9 requires that you have experience with international regulations and privacy and ethics. So are you familiar with EU, AI regulations, and things like that? That's a long list of what you should know for this job. But I like the way that it was really explained. It has everything, so you don't have a question about what it's required. That's why I like job descriptions directly from the organizations looking for it, because it tells you exactly what they want, especially with these bigger organizations. So you're not kind of wondering, okay, do I have this? Do I have that? It's stated right there. And your job there is to then think of how your experience matches that, or how to go out and get those skill sets that they want and develop yourself to get to where the job matches what you have or what you want to have. Let's look at the salary. Time to discuss the meat or the meat substitute. Okay. What do you think of the salary for this role? It says here that the base salary is 94 to 180 per year, but for people who live in San Francisco and New York City metro area, it starts from 122 to 200. What do you think of this? Is this low? I know. Anyway, we've come to the end of this video. If you've watched till the end, bravo. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. All right, take care.